You can indicate with dropping us a hi on the chat box to indicate that you are online before we kickstart another webinar from CYSEC NG. And this one is a quite interesting one. Okay, thank you, Ehimen. You can hear me then. Okay, while we just wait for some few more minutes for the late birds to connect, because I'm seeing some people trying to connect here. I welcome each and every one of us here on the platform, and today is quite an interesting one. Please, if you can hear me, you can give me a hi on the chat box or give me a wave on the chat box. Okay, amazing. All right, so I want to once again welcome everyone to this interesting and amazing webinar that is being set up by CYSEC NG, a cybersecurity solution and challenge. We deal with a lot of things that happens to do with trending issues in cybersecurity. We also go in training and actually making people who are interested into the cybersecurity field actualize their dreams as well. And with this, we have another interesting series, which is called FILELESS Malware Attacks and how we can mitigate and conquer them or fight against them. FILELESS malware attacks and how to identify them and fight against them. And with this, we have an amazing host here. My humble self, I'm Precious Olives, and our co-host, Mr. Samuel, who will be coming up soon, shortly, and picking up from here. So with this, I'm sure you will enjoy this webinar. And without wasting much time, I would just like to give us a brief introduction about what we are here today. So first of all, FILELESS malware. Over the recent years, we've been having consistent issues with malware attacks and even ransomware attacks. And it keeps on going. And we have different statistics of how much these attacks continuously come and pop up. And here we're actually going to talk about even one interesting one, because malwares, we get hit by malwares on a daily basis, and many of us don't even have an idea about it. But this is not even really new into the system. Talking about FILELESS malware, as you know, are malwares without files, and they are very much difficult to find because they almost leave no traces in most scenarios. And this has been even a trending issue in the cyberspace. And here we're about to talk about that here. And we'll be going on from here. I want to introduce and call my colleague and also the co-host here in the person of Mr. Samuel, who will shortly give a brief introduction of himself and carry on the first session of this webinar. Thank you so much.
Okay, good evening, everyone. If you're in Nigeria or West Africa, good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. I really see that an opportunity to share knowledge and also interact with many elite professionals here. So I'll be sharing my screen now. I'll need you, Precious, to enable screen sharing for me. Okay, still disabled. Maybe you make the host. Okay, I can share screen now. Okay. I want everyone to confirm if you can see my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, my name is Samuel Modupe. So I will be presenting on fileless malware attacks, how to identify and defend against them. So just to give a bit biography or bit background to who I am. So I'm a cybersecurity professional whose skills provide technical security solutions and guidance through high quality service. So I'm adept at training both users and cybersecurity professionals as we are here on cybersecurity technologies, procedures, attacks, and preventive measures. So my key areas, which competencies is around security engineering. I love building stuff. I have competencies, great competencies in information security. I'm a fan of technology. I'm also a very rational thinker. So I have some industry recognized certifications, and my hobby includes thinking, teaching, research, projects, networking, and I'm a diehard fan of action movies. Yes, so going to the business of today is fileless malware. Now, the word fileless malware makes it more interesting because the way we know malware is we attach a file, a payload, a substance, something you can hold to it. So a malware is whether it's a Trojan, it's a worm, a virus, whatever form of malware, we will always have a file attached to it. But bringing the fileless attribute to it makes it gives it a different approach to the traditional. So setting a bit of history or background to fileless malware, it was actually first reported in 2014 by Kaspersky Labs. So it's not that they detected it, it was found in the environment. So Kaspersky Labs were like the first victim of fileless malware. So the doctor who ought to treat the patient is the one who is being treated here. And the fileless malware that was spotted then was DoQ 2.0, and it started as a nation-state attack. So the issue of fileless malware started as a nation-state attack sponsored by government. Now it's now a profit-making business. You now have in recent times what we call fileless ransomware. Fileless ransomware. So it has become a profit motive, something that is being geared towards profit. So fileless malware differs from the traditional malware. The traditional malware works in such a way that you have a file where you encode a payload, maybe code it with base 64, embed it in that particular file, and that file will cause havoc. And that file is stored in disks, but the fileless malware works in such a way that the attacker runs malicious code in the system memory or registry. And it leverages on the attack and tools that are already installed on the system. So you're not bringing a tool from outside somewhere. You're not bringing a utility that doesn't exist in the system. You're just leveraging on the applications, the tools, the utilities, the built-in tools that are on that system. And it's also called zero footprint, meaning that you don't find traces. So when you want to do a forensics of an attack that had occurred or a fileless malware attack that occurred, you won't find any trace. And that's one of the major characteristics with it. Now, also giving more context to fileless malware is looking at it from a global and statistical view. So for we to see the importance why we need to pay caution or take cognizance of fileless malware. Now, as of 2018, between 2019 and 2019 and 2020, it was recorded that it had about 888% increase. So the cases or the incidents we've had for FILELESS malware has increased exponentially. Even between 2019 2020. And also there's been a surge in FILELESS attacks. And the major vector, the major mechanism to which FILELESS malware is spread is using Microsoft Office, PDF documents, Office documents, it might be a spreadsheet. There is no business today that doesn't work with spreadsheets, Word documents, PDF documents. And one interesting fact to know, or statistics to know, is that FILELESS malware attacks are most times 10% more likely to succeed. So if I have an incident of FILELESS malware, then there's a high percentage that is a success, because the traditional security mechanism and security infrastructure have been built to look for a file whenever it comes to malware. Now, Ponium Institute in January 2020 did a comparison of the rise of FILELESS malware. So in 2019, as you can see here, based on FileBase, they noticed that there's been a decline in the incidents. So most of the malware incidents or attacks you have these days, there has been a gradual decline in FileBase, such as exe, doc, bat, PDF, and you are having a gradual increase in FILELESS that has to do with macro, script, in memory, remote code execution exploits. So as you can see here from this chart, from this table here, you can see here that in 2019 they had 33%, in 2020 it was 35%, and 2021 is projected to be 41%. Now, one thing that would help you identify a FILELESS malware is understanding the phase, understanding the stages to which the attack occurs. And CrowdStrike has done a lot of research to be able to break down the FILELESS malware attack into 4 cardinal phases. The first phase is gain access. So for an attacker to be able to compromise your system with a FILELESS malware attack, the first thing he will try to do is to gain access, whether using a script, whether using a code. It will want to ensure that it gain access to have a foothold on your system. Then it will attempt to steal credentials, sensitive information, data that are running or are resident on that particular system. Then it goes further to be able to ensure persistence, to ensure that the attacker has a backdoor into the environment so that there will be easy access into that environment or that system. And the last, and not the least, which is the fourth, is where the attacker action on his objectives to exfiltrate data, to be able to gather sensitive data and upload to his command and control center. Now, I have a brief of flow to be able to help you understand how the traditional malware works and how the FILELESS malware works. Now, in a traditional malware attack, what you have is that using spear phishing or phishing, for an example, you get a malicious attachment and you open that attachment, and that attachment saves into disks. So it saves as a file into disks. Now, when it saves into disks, between the process of downloading and saving, that's where you have most of your anti-malware solutions, where they begin to scan the file to see if there's any signature, if there's any hash, to identify if that file is malicious. Now, if your antivirus or your endpoint security is able to allow it saves to disks, then the next thing it does is that it runs in memory. When you execute that file, it goes to memory and runs as a process in memory. And running as a process, it creates a malicious process. Now, when it's able to create a malicious process, then it's able to talk to its command and control center, where it retrieves payloads and commands. So this is how a traditional malware attack works. whether it's a Trojan, whether it's a virus, whether it's a worm. Usually this is how the flow works. Now, coming to fileless malware attack. The fileless malware attack takes a different approach. It's a game changer to the whole idea of how the traditional malware attack works. Now, you have a malicious script. Now, this script can be in terms of a web script, it can be a JavaScript, it can be a VB script, any script typically. So this script, whether visiting a website, visiting or clicking on a URL, it runs directly in memory. It means it's able to evade the saving or the storage of this script on disk. So all the security mechanism to which you have built around ensuring that a malicious file or a malicious substance doesn't get to your disk is being evaded, and also all the mechanism to ensure that a malicious file is not executed is also being evaded. So the malicious script runs directly in memory. The script runs directly in memory. Now, when it runs in memory, it automatically creates a legitimate process, which subsequently creates a malicious process. So creating a legitimate process for your security mechanism, it will see it as, okay, yes, so this is a Word document, this is a typical document that exists, so there's no need to flag it. But inside that process, it also spawns up a malicious process. And this malicious process, using the legitimate process as a springboard, is able to retrieve payloads and command from the command and control center. So this is a process. Now, when the malware has gotten to this stage and it wants to ensure that it has persistence, it doesn't have to go through this whole process again, it writes to system registry. It begins to modify the system registry keys to ensure that whenever the system boots up, using a trigger, it will spawn up the process. Whenever the system shuts down, it will shut down. So it makes it what the system lives by day. So that's how the fileless malware attack works. Now, taking a look at it also much more objectively to be able to understand the fileless malware, we have a scenario where we're breaking it into the attack vector, the execution mechanism, and also the compromised host. So an attack vector, fileless malware usually most of the time comes through these 4 attack vectors. It comes in form of a website hosting an exploit kit. So your users visit a website that is malicious, visit a website that has embedded in it a malicious link. So that particular website can be an attack vector to compromise your users. It can also be in form of a spam campaign, a spam campaign that has been shared to everyone. Click this and win $100. Click this and do this. And users who are greedy would naturally, spontaneously click it, not knowing that that link is actually a malicious link. And you have spear phishing, which are targeted mails that are sent to your users. Even IT professionals fall victim of these. You might have a PayPal account or a typical e-commerce, and you have a specific mail from them saying, so and so, you need to click this, you need to update your document, you need to update your profile, and a lot of people are still falling for it. So, and you can have malicious URL. It might be a mail that is okay, but inside of it, you have a malicious URL that's been embedded. And these are all attack vectors to be able to compromise or propagate fileless malware. Now, when the attack vector is successful, whichever means it's their user the attacker uses, it creates either a WMI, Windows Management Instrumentation Object, which runs by default in Windows. So it's an inbuilt tool that is in Windows and is used for operation. So every Microsoft Windows operating system has WMI enabled. And it runs using this WMI object with VB script or J script, or it runs on the registry directly. So every Windows system has registry. Every Windows system has registry. As truth as it may, as common as it may be, fileless malware are more common with Microsoft Windows systems as compared to Linux. But there are variants of fileless malware that could exploit Linux. So either ways, whether running on registry or using the WMI object, it executes a PowerShell. And PowerShell is also an inbuilt tool that is resident in every Windows system, whether at an administrator level or at a user level. PowerShell is enabled. So it executes this script on PowerShell, which is able to run malicious payload and achieve the attacker's objective. So in this presentation, I'll have just a little demo to be able to illustrate this, and also just give you a proof of concept as to the fileless malware attack. So in this demo, we'll be using these mechanisms. So we have spear phishing. So a user receives a mail, spear phishing, and clicking that mail, executing the attachment, it creates a WMI object, which automatically initiates a PowerShell and is able to harvest some sensitive information about the victim. So we'll be going hands-on. Okay, so in my lab here, I'm running a VMware workstation, and I have two particular machines here. So I have my Kali Linux, which is standing in. I have my Kali Linux, which is standing in for my C2 server, my command and control server. This is my Kali. And I also have my Windows 10, which is sitting as my victim system. So Windows 10 is, I would say, is the most common used operating system in virtually every environment, whether it's the SMB, enterprise. Windows 10 is what many people use. So this is a common scenario for many computer users. And Kali Linux can be seated anywhere on the internet. I just need reachability to Kali Linux. Okay, so I'll log into my C2 server. So logging into my C2 server, it tells me that this is my IP address. So my C2 server would definitely have a public IP, but because this is a controlled or a lab, I have a private IP, a 192.168.1.128 as my IP. So that is there. Then on my user, so this is user, and in this scenario, I'm demoing as a user whose name is Kate. Kate is the user who owns the system, and Kate received a mail from an attacker. So Kate works for a company called Gaia Automobiles, and a customer have requested for supplies. And if you're familiar with supply chain, you send a purchase order. So she has received a purchase order. Yeah, so hello Kate, trust this material. Please see the attached order of supplies. Kindly process this order urgently from John Smith, who is the manager. So she looking at it is a legit mail. Yes, so it's a purchase order. It was addressed to me. It's a spear phishing and it's very urgent. I need business. So what she does is she downloads the documents. So this is the documents. So she downloads the document, then open up this document. So immediately she opens this document, at the background, it automatically initiates a script. So this script is able to get some user data, some data from our system and be able to send to the command and control center. So it says, do you be careful of these files, enable editing, and it runs it again. So, but if you look at it, it looks like a legit document. It was addressed to Kate, the phone number, the address, these are the items, these are the costs, and it's a legit document. But unknown to her, a fileless malware has been executed on our system. And how did that happen? So how it happened is that on this particular Word document, a macro has been created on it. So if I go to view, I go to macros and I go to view macros and I do an edit. So this is the malicious script that's executed on our system, quite small. And the interesting thing about it is if I run this on VirusTotal, so you might be asking, VirusTotal is supposed to catch this. VirusTotal is supposed to flag this. So I'll run this on VirusTotal and would see that a typical antivirus would say that this is clean. Okay, confirm upload. So it's uploading and it's doing an analysis of this particular file. And it's going to scan it among the most common or the regular anti-malware vendors that you have, about 60 of them. And it will come out with a report as to if that file is malicious or not. So from this particular scenario, you can see that no security vendor flagged this file as malicious out of 62 vendors. Yes. So if I say 5, it might be a mistake. 10, 20, 30, 62, then this file must be very, very safe. These are all the big names, you know, Symantec, Sophos, Panda, McAfee, name it, FireEye, all of them detect this particular file as safe. Even on this particular Windows, I have Windows Defender up, and let's see, it's telling me that it's up to date. So up to date, the last update was today. So this anti-malware ought to flag it, but it's safe. But what did the attacker do? The malicious script that has been embedded as a macro in this particular document ran and initiated a PowerShell script and ran in memory, which is still running in memory, by the way. Okay, so when we look at this script a bit, so now this is identifying it or to understand how this happened. So there's an auto open which says that whenever I open this particular document, run this method, this particular script automatically. So immediately I opened it, you notice that first of all, a PowerShell script came up, and the script was run and it gave me some results. Now, what is in this method? It is leveraging on WMI, which is an inbuilt utility in Windows. It's also executing a Win32 for administrative privileges, and is able to initiate a PowerShell. And this no exit is what makes it for me to be able to still see it here. So, and it's going to download a script from a command and control center. And this is it, 192.168.1.1.2.128/getinfo. So if I come to my command and control center here, this is it. I have a plethora of scripts here. So the one which was executed or which this particular victim used was getinfo. So this script is not resident anywhere in the victim's computer, in the victim's data. It's not resident anywhere. It just made reference to it. It made reference to my command and control center and it executed it. So if I show the details of the script, this was the script that was run, that was downloaded and run in memory. It was never saved in disks. This was the script. So it gets info and it gets information from the registry. So if we go and check what information it was able to harvest, you can see by just clicking a particular Word document. So from there, I can fetch information. So I can fetch, these are the environment variables on this particular system. This is the processor type on this particular system. These are the users on this system, kit. Yes, these are the installed applications on this particular system. So I have Microsoft Office 16 4-bit components 2016 edition. It's not in a domain. Yes, I can see if there's any local DNS resolution that's been configured. I can see the services that are running at the moment. As you can see them here, these are all the services that are running on this particular system. I can see the local users. These are local users on this particular system. I can see the domain of the computer, which is workstation, a whole lot of information I can get from this system. So if it was connected to a Wi-Fi, I could see the Wi-Fi drivers, the wireless the interfaces. I could see a whole lot of information I could harvest. So that is just for getting info. I could also execute Mimikat scripts, and it won't run on disk. And this script, very long, about 2.1 MB. I have Windows Credential Manager DOM. Every saved password or credential on that particular system, I can harvest. So these are scripts on my command and control server or center. So, and all of these ran with just this line of code embedded in my macro. And I was able to get this level of information. Now, to also be able to understand the evasion tactics of FILELESS malware, I will run a process explorer. The process explorer would help to better understand what is happening on the background. So this is Process Explorer. So it's a tool to analyze what processes are running at the moment. So on this particular system, which belongs to Kate, these are all the processes that are running at the moment. Now, if you follow closely, what brought about this havoc was executing a Word file. So, and this Word file is standing on its own. The one I downloaded from Chrome is standing on its own, independent on its own, while the service that is causing the havoc, PowerShell, is standing on its own. So if I have any, just like most of the security tools you have these days, when they want to look into processes, they look at the parent and child processes to be able to spot any anomaly. So a Word document shouldn't be having a PowerShell as a child process. A Excel document shouldn't be having a PowerShell. So from that, they flag that this is a malicious script. But you can see here that PowerShell is standing on its own, independent on its own, as though a system process or a system service is using it. So this is what happened on this particular system, and you can harvest a lot from it. So how do you prevent it? Okay, so how do you prevent FILELESS malware from happening? The traditional antivirus has failed. We've seen, I had a Windows Defender, I had all the big names, FireEye, I had Sophos, I had all the big names. They couldn't identify that file as malicious. So how do we defend against FILELESS malware? Now, one of the best ways to defend it is understanding how it works. So just the way you know, it's a malicious script that runs directly in memory that uses a legitimate process as a springboard to retrieve instructions and payload from a command and control center. So delivery, that's one phase. Delivery, it exploits a vulnerability in the application. Maybe it's a web browser, an office package, or PDF reader. So this could be executed on a web browser. I could embed that code on a web browser. Once you click that link, it will execute the same way. I could have demonstrated for Office. It can also happen as a PDF reader. Now, one way to prevent it at this level is behavioral detection and exploit prevention. So behavioral detection. So sandboxing also comes in here. Many sandbox solutions you have in the market tell you they are sandbox. So what they just do is signature scan. So, but a sandbox will take this particular document, execute it in a controlled, contained environment, and observe to see, okay, what are the processes that were created? What are the communications that this process is making? And we're able to flag it there. Now, if that bypasses delivery Another thing you could do is at the persistent stage, where it wants to maximize, or it wants to exploit the use of the WMI registry or tax scheduler. So you can have an advanced endpoint solution that will scan critical areas like your WMI, your registry, and also tax schedules, so that's to see if there's any anomaly that is happening at the moment. So that would help mitigate at that level. Then if the malware bypasses this level, the other level is the execution level. Now, they use PowerShell. PowerShell is the main entry point for fileless malware. PowerShell, however means they come, they still make use of PowerShell. And one common PowerShell script or command they use is the IEX, which I used to, and there's also the dialog string URL. So from that, you can mitigate based on the behavior. So when you see a PowerShell script with this command or PowerShell script making reference to a particular URL, then you should flag it again. But if you can't detect it, your system is compromised. So also giving a bit of methodological way as to prevent or defend against fileless malware is to look at tailored security awareness. So in this demo, if Kate was quite aware that, okay, whatever be the document, you don't enable macro, or you should be very careful that a PO shouldn't be sent in a document. That's even one flag. Shouldn't be sent in a .exe file. It should be sent in PDF. So for someone to send me a purchase order in a Word document, then is a flag. Yes, though you cannot avoid Excel, because Excel is what is sent even for official purposes. But that awareness can help, that users would need to check the attachments, need to verify and ensure that this is not a phishing mail. If I can spot it's a phishing mail, then everything that comes with it is also suspicious. So you place emphasis in your tailored security awareness on best security practices, like not opening macros, disregarding suspicious email attachment, and visiting only secured websites. Another mechanism or another defense strategy you could use is proper patch management. Missing patches has been and will ever be the potential entry point for any attacker, the vulnerabilities that exist. So for you to be able to ensure proper patch management using a regular vulnerability management system would really, really help to ensure that all the patches, even for legacy systems, are covered. Now, another strategy you could use is to disable non-essential tools. Now, what does a user have? What would a user use a PowerShell for? Is not doing IT administrative operations. So a typical user shouldn't have PowerShell enabled. It should be disabled. Even command prompts on a regular user, how many users ever get to use command prompts? Do they even know what command prompt is? So why should you enable non-essential tools for particular users? Because those tools or inbuilt tools are what the attacker leverage to perpetrate or to spread or propagate fileless malware attacks. Now, the fourth one I have here is process integrity monitoring. Now, you can Google this, you will not find this anywhere. It's my own invention. Yeah, so you are familiar with file integrity monitoring, yes. File integrity monitoring monitors file to see if there are any changes and record those files. And knowing if those changes are malicious, is able to flag it. So in my help in terms of ransomware, when files are being encrypted, a film can help flag and block such from happening. But a process integrity monitoring helps take a deeper look into memory. So a Word document should not be spawning, should not be creating a PowerShell process. A PowerShell process should not be referencing a URL, an external URL. So all those process integrity monitor can really help you monitor for indicators of attacks. So indicators of attacks are attacks in progress. So when the attack is ongoing, you are flagged that, okay, this is happening in real time, and you're able to proactively mitigate it. You can also employ the services of a managed threat hunter. You call an external party to be able to search. And just like a hunter will go to the forest and look for animals or prey to kill. So the hunter comes in your environment and looks for malware, looks for suspicious activities and flag them. And you need to focus on indicators of attacks. We are all aware of indicators of compromise, which means a breach has happened. And when that breach has happened, you gather the artifact and say, okay, whenever you see something like this, this is an attack. But when the attack is ongoing, that is when best you can mitigate this. It's not when the deed is done. So indicators of attack is more proactive than indicators of compromise. So thank you very much, and I'll give room for questions or contribution. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Samuel. Much greetings, sir.
Thank you.
Aside from we just coming in, is there any way we could also get more detailed explanations, like a transcript on the training we just received now?
Come again, I didn't hear you.
You know, that's my phone. That's the reason why I couldn't hear what they are saying as I was coming.
Okay. I was asking if there is any possibility we could get transcript on the training, or just receive from you, sir.
Okay. I
You know, is this Saturday the exam?
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you. But Olusegun Alabi. Yes. Okay, Precious. Hello.
Okay. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
All right.
Hello.
Thank you so much for the presentation. It was very amazing, and I actually learned a lot myself. So from now, what we'll do right now is we will not take any questions at the moment. First of all, this video or this recording will be sent to every participant through their mails, and also whatever questions you have, you can send them to our company via the email, which I'll be dropping here, info@CYSEC.ng. I'll be dropping that. And from here, we'll just quickly move on to the second presentation. This won't take time at all. Can we all hear me?
Yes, we can hear at least.
Okay,
yes.
you can all hear me. All right, so now to explain the whole idea and explain the whole idea of FILELESS malware. And what I'm going to do here is just to wrap it all up. And okay, without much, I'm just a cybersecurity engineer and a penetration tester, and more of offensive security. I do more of red teaming. Can we all see my screen?
Go ahead.
All right, thank you. So now, I'm certified in C.
I can't see the screen, sorry.
You can't see my screen. Okay,
No,
just
no. Yes, yes,
now,
yes.
Right?
Yes, yes.
All right. So I'm a certified ethical hacker and a biometrics certified engineer for multi-cloud and networks and security, and certified network Security and also MT for Microsoft Technology Associates. I love researching about cybersecurity generally, and I run the field practically and hands-on. So here we can see a graphic image of a system that is pretty much infected. I would prefer to say it that way. And this is something that is very much common, and my colleague has been able to detailedly show us even a practical hands-on on how this attack is being carried out. I will not be actually running a practical hands-on, but I will just wrap it all up with more information on that. So generally, according to recent report by CYSEC, and Sysmantec is actually, most of us would have known part of Norton. So Norton, they came up and they said that more than 317 million new pieces of malware, computer virus, or other malicious software are created every year. They were created in 2014, and that means every year or nearly 1 million new threats are released each day. So you can imagine how many malwares are released in a year generally. So we have a lot of tools even available on the internet, I would say open source, that even a newbie can actually go online and can create his own malware from scratch. And new malwares are being created every single day, and about nearly 1 million of that. All right, so reality of malware attacks I want to explain here is, we've talked about the fileless malware rather, and about 77% of compromised attacks in 2017 were fileless, which is very important to you to note. And then 94%, there was a survey conducted by Punemon Institute, which indicates that there was an alarming 94% rise in fileless malware. And of course, over 18 million websites are infected with malware at a given time each day. And 230,000 new malware samples are produced every day. And this prediction just keeps going on. So we experienced malware attacks as regular in every day. And I was going to show us a cybersecurity threat landscape of current attacks that are being occurred or carried out in the world daily. And if time will permit, I will do that at the end of the session. Now, here are just pretty news headlines that I was able to just coin out for us to see. Here states that strings of fileless malware attacks, possibly tied to a single attacker or hacker group, rather. And then you can see the attack uses PowerShell, which my colleague are going to emphasize about. And there are other open source tools like Mimikatz and Metapreter, which were loaded directly in the memory, which we have already seen. Now, fileless malware attacks are also used in banks. They target huge organizations. And that is what my colleague also talked about, spear phishing. They target celebrities and anything that could bring revenue, money, and more. So now we have new fileless malware attacking organization and leaves no trace. And my colleague are able to spend more time explaining how or why fileless malware leaves no trace. So now, what is fileless malware again? Just for a reminder, an attack that doesn't require any malicious executable or regular file to be stored or written in the victim's machine, which makes it pretty much difficult or hard to detect with just normal antivirus programs and more. And also we talk for persistency. Persistency means for every time we initiate the initial attack, for us to be able to always go back and gain remote access to this hacked device or hacked machine. So for persistency, we'll leave a small portion of the code. We just leave something there that will give us remote access every time we need to get new files, new information about our target. Now, ways to achieve an infectious or an infection without files. Generally, I would say the first thing, which my colleague has already explained as well, it's what we do here is fileless malware is always hit a user through files, through mails, or whatever means of files you download from the internet. And the very first thing that happens is it hides on your RAM and also can trigger and delete information on your Windows registries. And when that happens, what we'll see is will almost not notice it. Your antivirus would not even notice this process because the whole hallmark of fileless malware is the fact that it doesn't store any information on the drive. And generally, your antivirus actually scans information on your external drive. So all attacks are being hidden on the RAM. Now, talking more of the next way we can achieve infection without files is through code injection. And this occurs when use of obfuscated malicious code, which means codes that have been encrypted or encrypted in a way that the machine itself cannot really understand it on the go. And now when these codes are being attached with files like Word documents and Excels, the system, or there's a way we can actually run this scripting code in a way that it tries to deobfuscate this code, that is, make it now readable and automatically run on the target machine. And also, I say for persistency, we always need a way to keep at least first stage of the code on the system. So now, characteristics of fileless malware. Number one, they leverage approved applications that are already on the targeted system. So they don't need to install any extra files. They only make use of the files already in your system. There's a term, hackers, we call it living off the land, which means we are not installing any new files. We're just making an attack with already files and trusted softwares on your system to coordinate our attack. So there's no identifiable code or signature that could be detected through traditional antivirus solution. That's what happened by EV solutions. Now, this cannot be detected by just any antivirus solution. And there is no particular behavior that could be detected by heuristic scanners, which my colleague is giving us a practical view by trying to even scan this malicious file. And we discovered that virus data didn't even see it as a malicious file. And that's because most antivirus softwares and scanners, they don't run some level of, they carry just surface level of scan, and they don't carry out some level of behavioral scans to look for anomalies in files and application. They will have memory base, which is one particular trait of fileless malware. They live in the memory. They don't have any leftover information on the device or the external hardware or hard drive of their target. So they live off the memory of their targets. Now, they use processes that are inbuilt into the operating system. Example, the PowerShell, which is very popular, that fileless malware use. And they can be paired with other types of malwares, because through that, they can escalate privilege, install some other files, and have a complete takeover of the target's device. Now, the basic fileless malware techniques we have here, number one is exploit kits. Now, this is just, like I said, if you go to the internet and you see a lot of open source projects and scripts that can automatically create you malware, viruses, more for script kiddies and people who are not really core hackers. Now, exploit kits are just a script that have a ton of other exploits. Some of these scripts can automatically be installed on a target's device, and without even any stress, these scripts can automatically scan for vulnerabilities, find loopholes, attack those loopholes, and exploit them automatically without you doing anything. So that is where exploit scripts come into play. And then we have registry resident malware. They are just malwares that hide themselves on the Windows registry in order to remain persistent. And this could take a lot of time. They remain there, and to be very honest, even more professional computer techies not really have time to go to that registry and review information, because anything changed on your Windows registry could be fatal on your system itself. So that's what we have here. That we have memory-only malware, and the example is Duku Worm, which infected over 40 operating systems years ago. And it's a malware that just hides on the RAM and nothing more. Now, moving forward, we have the fileless behavior. And here, this talks about how the fileless malware is being injected and carried out. So usually it's through a small VBS, Visual Basic Script or JavaScript, and they're just written hidden in a file. And after that, they are sent to the target, and these scripts, they are hidden and obfuscated. Like I said, they are written in a way that they cannot be easily identified by scanners or antivirus system. So they are more complex and powerful logic that infects a binary into another process. So now, after that, and after this malicious file is sent to the system, and it deobfuscates this code and executes this script on your machine, the next thing is it begins to share itself and run processes on your RAM or your Windows registries, and it never stores any leftover files on your original hard disk. It never touches that, which makes it very difficult to decipher or footprint or trace this malware. So yeah, not sure if it's a demo effect or just a crappy software. An example that my colleague actually did and show us practically indicates when this document was launched to view the contents, you discover that the PowerShell file automatically came up and ran itself some commands. And from the attacker's point of view, if the attack is being carried out professionally and properly, he can actually manipulate and do things like trigger your operating system's camera. You can even open more ports and escalate more privilege, turn on your recording mic of your operating system, take screenshots and record every process they feel like. Now, most of the times you had experiences of trying to install a software, or you open a document and you just see your command prompt or your PowerShell blinked for a few seconds. And you might just think that is just a minor effect. In most cases, it's a malware that is carrying out automated processes. But most of the times we are very negligent. We prove negligence to these things because we don't really understand what just happened. So we don't even bother to make any further research on what just happened. So now, this is just an example of an obfuscated Java and Visual Basic script I wrote, rather. And this script, basically, the colored part of the scripts are what I call obfuscated scripts. And these scripts are actual codes, but have been obfuscated, that is encrypted in a way that if this malware, these scripts attached to a Microsoft document is being sent to that target, the system will not flag it as malicious, because most of the scripts that it should flag as malicious are obfuscated and they are encrypted in a way the system will not understand. But once this is already into the system and launched, these obfuscated scripts can directly be deobfuscated. And with just a simple command code, it can unencrypt itself and become a full-fledged script that can be launched and run full-time on the operating system. Now, when this is done, this is an example of a malware document. Immediately this is done, it executes the scripts in PowerShell. Depending on how these things are being written, it can execute this thing in a matter of seconds. And most times it might just be your PowerShell blinking for a few seconds. and that's all. This malware has been injected into your RAM and your system registries. Now, what are the best practices to avoid or to fend against this fileless malware? So the very first thing to do is to avoid downloading and installing untrusted applications. In most huge organizations, there's what we call sandboxing, which my colleague has taken time to explain. In official organizations, they avoid running or launching external applications or documents are filed on system company. There is a particular software designated for that, or particular system designated for that purpose, so that you won't have huge vulnerability or threats on your organization. Next, you want to update your browsers. Updating your browsers helps you to at least defeat some level of malware, and constant updating of the browser are helpful in most cases that we don't even realize. The next thing you need to do is watching out for phishing and hosting emails. There are a lot of hosters and phishing emails on the internet, and there's no kind of email that can be cloned generally, even no kind of websites that can't be cloned generally. So when we have, when you see phishing emails or you receive documents, you might want to make detailed reviews on these documents. And the next is want to keep up to date with patches and software applications. Constant updating of your OS is not even a bad idea. It's very good because when you update your OS, patches and new security release are being installed in your system to prevent your system from being hit with maybe the recent and latest malwares and types of attacks. Now, next is the malwares and email facts, because most malwares are being transferred through emails generally. Now, the volume of email fraud organizations receive has increased 8% year over year. So every year, email fraud keep on increasing. And out of that, 49% of non-point of sale malware was installed via malicious web. So we have a lot of mails lurking around, and greater percentage of these mails are all malicious. And email compromises cost on average about $24,439 per case. And on average, 30% of users in the education industry have fallen for phishing emails. So these are things that actually happen a lot. Like I said, mails can be cloned, and attackers can go and create mails that look like the original and actual mail. So you can impersonate any company, and that's why in hacking, the proper reconnaissance and information gathering are being carried out by hackers to understand and know who is from social organization, who handles the information that are being sent in organization. And through that, they can actually impersonate these people and send mails that are malicious to the company. And that could lead to a huge threat. So in conclusion, the attack path that's been summarized here indicates, first of all, attack has been carried out through a malicious mail. A mail is sent and you download and open this attachment, and then you have your fileless malware run through your PowerShell and install some scripts on your Windows registry. And when that happens, you have your credentials stolen, and possibly you have backdoors installed on your operating system that will enable the attacker to any point in time always have access to your operating system. So, and after that, they have your system details, your company is infiltrated, and you experience loss. And a lot of this can even lead to more greater threats, because some organizations have partners with other organizations. Through threats like this, they can impersonate this organization and even use it to attack other organizations. So a threat is not just summed up to a single organization. It can escalate to even more organizations. Now, even though fileless malware is fileless, it's not completely immune to being analyzed. It requires complex techniques to figure out how cyber criminals execute these malwares. And every year, a lot of companies and organizations are trying to build systems that could detect this fileless malware because of the level of damage they've caused to companies over time. And fileless malwares are not new and are consistently carried out. I mean, we've already established that by seeing the news of 2017 and more down to recent years of a lot of fileless malwares attack that have carried out. Now, full attack operations are possible without using any files or almost any files. So these days, hackers have transited from attacking a computer, attacking an organization with files, but these days more fileless attacks are being carried out. So with that, thank you so much for this, and also for the, I said I was going to show us a little thing on the threats landscape. All right, so I'll just show us a lot of attack that being carried out in a daily basis for us to understand that okay, let me all right, can we see my screen so far? Can we all see my screen? You can see my
We're
screen.
saying the thank you page, the thanks page. That's what we're
Okay,
saying.
just a minute. I believe we can see it now, right? We can see my
Yes.
screen, right? All right,
Yes.
so now this is a live cyber threats map, and you can see a lot of threats or attacks that are being carried out in a daily basis. The red you are seeing here are malwares. You can see it's written down here. And the purple are phishing attacks that happen in different parts of the world and different parts of the country. So you can see that constantly we have malwares and exploits that are being carried out in a daily basis. And over time, you discover that we have about, on just today, we have about 66 million attacks that have been carried out. So these attacks happen more frequently. A lot of malware attacks are being carried out on a daily basis. And the reason why we are bringing this into our notice is because of we need to be aware and so help ourselves in identifying these threats and solving them in every possible way we can. Thank you so much for your rapt attention. And with that, I would like to just close by notifying us about the reason why we CYSEC Technology as a team here, we are here to actually, CYSEC NG, we are the first and large offensive premier cyber conference and hacking events in the whole of Africa. And our non-profit initiative is sponsored and supported by the government agencies and other partners in the industry. And our aim is just to provide an all-encompassing platform for IT security in Nigeria and for the rest of the world. So generally, we want to bring a lot of this to your notice. And we also do this to help build interested people who are coming up into the field of cybersecurity, help them grow, help them realize their dream, and as well, also bring a lot of awareness to the general public. Thank you so much for this. Now, your questions, you can send your questions to our email. I'll be dropping it down again for us. info@CYSEC, CYSEC.ng. I've sent it down. All mails that will be sent here will be attended to. If you have any questions, you can drop them off. Thank you so much and have a great day.
You too.
Meanwhile, do we have any questions that we might want to address?
I don't think so.
We'll just be entertaining just 3 questions so far. Just 3 questions, anyone?
I have a question.
Sorry.
What I'm seeing on the screen. So this,
Please, can you speak up loud so that we can all hear you very properly?
Okay, this live cyber threat map. Can you hear me now?
Yes, very well.
Okay. Does it show the replica of the exact threats ongoing in the world, or is just an assumption? Or
It's not an assumption, actually. You can see even in Nigeria, we have phishing attacks that are being carried out. You can see that now currently. So these are not really just assumptions. These are actual facts, and this is being carried out on a daily basis. If you come tomorrow and you check through the cyber threat map landscape, you will discover you will see new different sets of attacks that are being carried out. So there you go. Another question relating to what we've just discussed so far. Okay, someone is asking if we can have the slides for the two. We will be sending, for all participants who registered, we'll be sending the video to your mails particularly. And of course, the video has the full slides in there. You can see for yourself. Okay, yeah, another person is asking finally, on how can you disable those built-in tools like command prompts in your system? Okay, these tools can actually be through even your Windows registries. You can actually disable most of these tools, and in most cases, we will advise, if you don't know what you're doing, it's preferable not to tamper with your system files and system properties, because in most cases, you might have difficulty addressing some issues when you have them occurred. And if you really insist, you can send us a mail and we will send you the process on how to do that as well. Okay, with that, we've treated